Here we are on the Late Night Kung Fu podcast, and it's me, Bay Logan. I feel weird, like I shouldn't be looking at camera because we're not really like doing this to camera, are we? We're just like recording.
We
many
can
people
look at the camera
listen.
if you don't want to.
It'd be scary looking at the camera too many times. People feel like we're like, you know, invading
Staring at them, yeah.
staring at them, invading their space. So anyway, how you doing, Leanne?
I'm good. I'm
Another
fine.
another day here in Kung Fu Central.
Yeah.
This is like if you imagined like your most fun hangout place, it would be kind of close to this, wouldn't it?
Yeah, actually, like, we've got comic books, kung fu books, everything I wish for.
Everything except sneakers.
Yeah.
I've got one pair, and I'm wearing them right now. It's outrageous. So, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Ip Man.
Ip Man, or as the foreigners call it, and I don't count myself as a foreigner anymore, but IP Man. When the film came
really?
out, everywhere in the world. Yeah, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. I'll tell you a funny IP Man story a bit later. But yeah, like intellectual property man, IP Man. That's what it was. People would pronounce it as. Well, when I was growing up in England, and obviously a big devotee of Bruce Lee and of the Kung Fu world, the romanization of the name of Yip Man was always YIP, which I actually think is better because I think, well, for foreigners, I mean, because basically when you see that, you definitely pronounce it as Yip. But when you have it, just the I and the P together, it's like when people have the name NG. It's very difficult for foreigners to figure out where the sounds go without a vowel, you know? So with Yip, you have a vowel with the I, but people would say IP Man. And I think if you kept it as Yip Man, you wouldn't have that problem. You'd have a slightly off pronunciation of the Chinese name, but you would, the payoff would be people would say Yip rather than IP. Rather than IP Man. I mean, it sounds ridiculous to you, but you'd be amazed at the number of people who refer to these films as IP Man. But Yip Man. And I first knew of Yip Man as a figure as the teacher of Bruce Lee. And because Bruce Lee was such an amazing icon who transformed everybody's life, including mine, you kind of just, you know, there's a Chinese saying, maybe you can say it for me in Chinese, when you drink the water, remember from where the water flows.
Oh, yeah.
How do you say it?
飲水思源.
Say it one more time.
飲水思源.
See, I should have memorized that by now. But anyway, yeah, that's it.
So,
飲水思源.
when you drink the water, you have to know where it comes from.
Right,
basically.
so those of us who idolize Bruce Lee, you want to find out from where the water flows. So that would have been Yip Man in the traditional classical relationship between teacher and student, because Bruce Lee, I don't even know if he did the Baisan, you know, the Baisi ceremony with Yip Man or not, actually, but definitely his official teacher was Yip Man. But the guy who really taught Bruce to, you know, walk and chew gum at the same time was Wong Shun Leung, the late great Wong Shun Leung, who my dear friend David Peterson has memorialized. He's an Australian guy who's a student of Wong Shun Leung. Actually, David Peterson is kind of me done right. He's into all the same things that I'm into, but he's just much more talented than me at all of them. I hate him. If I didn't love him so much, I'd hate him. But David is a long-time student of Wong Shun Leung, and he has written a wonderful book about more than one book about Wong Sifu, and also done documentaries and really kind of really fulfilled the any knowledge that you might want about Wong Shun Leung. You can find it from David's work more than anybody else, more than any of the Chinese students. I can say that. But he was the guy. He was like known as like Gong Sao Wong. He was the king of like the Gong Sao Chi Zhou, like those kind of exchange of techniques that happened in the 60s in Hong Kong. And he also, there's several books about those experiences. And Bruce Lee admired him hugely and was like, wow, I want to be like him, this king of fighters. But he was the guy who was really teaching Bruce Lee. But classically, in the Chinese tradition, Yip Man was the teacher. So I guess in terms of like popular culture and in terms of his place in the Kung Fu world, it's just he's the guy that taught Bruce Lee. But when people made movies, they tended to go upriver and do movies about people like Leung Chan and Zhao Qinhua, the antecedents of Yip Man. And so it was only relatively recent in the history of Kung Fu cinema that Yip Man has become this kind of cottage industry, has become this kind of phenomenon with a string of films by different filmmakers and different actors, but all focusing on Yip Man. Do you know where Yip Man is from in China? Wherever everything in Kung Fu is from really, for Southern Kung Fu, seems to be from Fatsan, Foshan, Nanhai, Lam Hoi, that area. I mean, I would say I'm a pretty decent historian of Kung Fu from that time on, coming into Hong Kong and the film world. But there's still a lot of work to be done, and they're being done now, researching why that became the kind of the locus for Kung Fu towards the end of the last century, by which I mean the 1800s going into the 1900s for Fatsan. And that's where Yip Man came from, and then, like many people, moved to Hong Kong and made a name for himself. Nobody before Yip Man came here really knew of Wing Chun as a style, this close range fighting style, and according to the mythology of the style, it was created by a woman. And there are versions of the story where she's a nun at Shaolin, and she sees a snake and a crane fighting, and all of this kind of wonderfully colourful mythology. And I don't know, none of us can know if any of this is true. I did hear a story that Yip Man was quite a mischievous fellow, and that this journalist kept badgering him for a colourful story, a colourful origin story, and he made it up. But I don't know if that's true. No one does. I mean, nobody can prove the stuff is true or not true, but it makes for a colourful myth. What we do know is that 2 or 3 generations before Yip Man, there were people in Fatsan teaching an art that was reminiscent of the Wing Chun Kung Fu that we see being taught today. And that he, Yip Man, could learn the art, move to Hong Kong, propagate it among the different students and make a name for the style, and eventually attract Bruce Lee, who took many of the aspects of Wing Chun for his Jeet Kune Do. And so that became really, you know, if anybody knew of a Kung Fu style outside of Hong Kong, they probably knew about Wing Chun. And they knew about it in the context of that was what Bruce Lee had learned before he moved to America. So that was the core of its appeal. And you can read all about that in my book, which is called
Bruce Lee and I.
Yeah, you know, keep plugging away.
Yeah.
But we talk about Bruce Lee's. Actually, it's not quite as straightforward as that, but we talk about Bruce Lee's Kung Fu background and filmmaking background before he moved to America, and then after he moved back to Hong Kong. So, as far as I know, the early efforts to become involved, to make a Yip Man movie, was really in the late 90s in Hong Kong cinema. And I'm not quite sure the time frame of this, but I remember being at a meeting between Donnie Yen, Yen Tidan, and Stephen Chow Xing-chi, in Admiralty, where they were discussing doing a Yip Man movie, a movie about the relationship between Yip Man and Bruce Lee. Because, I mean, maybe they're doing it now, maybe it's going to be Yip Man 4, but there really hasn't been, to date, a movie that has Yip Man and Bruce Lee all the way through and showing their relationship. The original script for Yip Man 3 was that story, and then they did away with it, and they just had a little cameo at the beginning from Danny Chan playing Bruce Lee. But this was definitely going to be Bruce Lee and Yip Man. And I can't remember which one of them was going to play which role, but there was discussion that it was going to be, one of them was going to be aged up to play Yip Man as an older man, and the other one was going to play Bruce Lee. And if you look at Donnie and Stephen Chow, actually either one of them could play Bruce Lee, and either one of them could play Yip Man, and they both played roles close to those characters. So that was when I was actually witness for that conversation. My thought is that predates the other first Yip Man project, which is from Wong Kar-wai, which was, of course, the legendary director Wong Kar-wai. So what do you know about Wong Kar-wai?
He directed tons of movies.
Right. And he's like the art house darling of the Chinese cinema. I'm in the mood for love. And he's famous for very slow, lyrical films. So I think when we heard he was doing a Kung Fu movie, everybody, including me, was like, what's this going to look like? Is it going to be, focusing on a Hoon Sao for like half an hour with like, Portuguese folk songs playing? Nobody knew what it was about. But he announced early on he had gone to Yip Chun, the son of Yip Man, who was also a Wing Chun exponent, and had the rights, or had collaborated with the Yip family to do a movie based on the life of Yip Man, which was eventually become the Grand Master, Yat Doi Zhongzi. But Wong Kar-wai takes his time, as we all, and deservedly so. When you see his films, they look like they were worth. And I was in one of them as an actor, 2046, and I helped out on Blueberry Nights and then later on the Grand Master. So I've been around his company and know the way he works, and I admire him hugely, and it's worth waiting for. But what happened was he announced the film and then embarked on this massive research project. He traveled all over China. He was really figuring out what this movie was going to be. And in the meantime, another producer, Kung Fu exponent called Xin Guolam, who's a friend of mine, was also interested in doing a Yip Man movie, and went to Yip Chun, and Yip Chun said, well, you know, the good news is I did this deal with Wong Kar-wai. The bad news is he's taking so long, I don't know if I'm going to live to see my father on the screen. So they went to, with respect to Kar-wai, and said, can we do another Yip Man movie in the meantime? And to his great credit, Wong Kar-wai said, sure, you know, I don't know when I'm going to get around to it. And so there was a press conference. I'm not sure if it's a joint press conference, but the announcement was made that the Grand Master, the Wong Kar-wai movie, was going to focus on Yip Man, the man, and the other one, the Yip Man movie that Xin Guolam was going to make, was going to be Yip Man, the martial artist, which, I mean, it's kind of an interesting, I mean, I guess it's a degree of focus, but certainly the Grand Master and the first Yip Man movie are very different films. So it shows you can make a very different film about the same subject, two different films about the same subject. But that was how they got around that potential conflict. And so Yip Man, the first Yip Man movie, when they were looking for cast, the first guy they went to was Andy Lau Datwa, the actor and singer, who was a big star, obviously. He knew that Leung Chiu-wai was going to play Yip Man in the Wong Kar-wai one. So apparently he was concerned about clashing and just being compared with Leung Chiu-wai. So it was probably Tony Leung. So it would be like better not to do it. And I think several people had the same concern. And at that time, Donnie Yen Ti-dan, had come back to Hong Kong. By my recollection, I think I'm the one that brought him back because we were doing a movie, The Twins Effect, Qin Gei Bin. Have you seen that one?
Yeah,
with
I've
Agil
heard it.
Asa? You've heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen it or you heard of it?
I think I've seen it.
That's okay. Is it with Agil and Asa playing vampire hunters in Hong Kong? But it was like, it's funny because I was a producer on the movie, put the film together at Emperor, and it was actually, it feels like it's kind of been forgotten now. But it was, I think it was the biggest hit of that year, one of the biggest hits of that year. And one of the reasons was that I persuaded Emperor to bring Donnie Yen Ti-dan, back from America, which is where he was living at the time, to Hong Kong to make films again. And once he was back here, he did a deal with a wonderful producer, Raymond Wong Batming. And Wong Batming, I think, is the guy we should really give credit to for the resurgence in the career of Donnie Yen, because they did a number of really good movies like Flashpoint, Do Fo Sin, Seven Swords, Chak Kim. And these movies were well received, but none of them really broke through to be a blockbuster. And then they had the Yip Man project that Xin Guolam had brought to Raymond Wong to kind of work with him on. And they were like, who's going to play Yip Man? And from what I know, Wong Batming was like, well, I have this contract with Donnie Yen, and there's another film left on the contract, so he's not too expensive. And Jet Li just shot this movie at the studios. I think it was Movie Maker Studios, Image Maker Studios in Shanghai, and he just did this movie, Fort Yun Gap, and all of the sets. Who, by the way, is a character that was complicated. This is the teacher of the Bruce Lee character in Fist of Fury. You're like going, what is he talking about? Anyway, it was a Bruce Lee related property. Fort Yun Gap.
I've heard.
Fort Yun Gap.
Yeah.
Fort Yun Gap.
I think I've watched the movie.
Yeah,
somehow.
it's called Fearless in English.
Oh, okay.
So then it was all the sets were still standing, and so it was like, we're just going to redress those sets, and we'll get Donnie in. And I think the most expensive element was getting Hong Gambo, Sammo Hung, to be the action director because Sammo doesn't come cheap. So Sammo is the action director who has got a great track record in. And it was interesting because it was like I mean, it's kind of a comeback movie for everybody because a lot of everybody on that movie was. Everybody knew they were great, but they were not having huge box office success. So that was true of Donnie, that was true of Sammo. It was true of my friend Fan Siu Wong, Louis Fan, who was also in the movie. So everybody got a boost. Even Wilson Yip Wai Sun, was highly regarded as a director, but definitely we can say that Yip Man took him to another level. So they shot this movie, and it was really magic. I mean, it just was amazing the way it just blew up. It put Yip Man as a concept, as a name in people's minds that was not there before. And it certainly redefined Donnie Yen, who I think unfairly before that was perceived as this incredible fighting machine. And he'd really been the spice in somebody else's stew. Like he was fantastic in, like Once Upon a Time in China 2 and Dragon Gate Inn, playing like villain roles. And then Iron Monkey, where he starred in Hong Kong and Asia, the box office wasn't so great. It was fine years later when it was re-released in America. But that doesn't really help you when you're building a career in Hong Kong. So this movie blew that out of the water, and suddenly he's a leading man. And I also think there's something to be said for the fact that roles are waiting for actors. Like Donnie, as a human being, had to grow and mature to be at the point where he was married, he had kids, he was in a different stage in life to really embrace the character. So it really fitted him, So I was so proud and happy because I'd known Donnie a long time to see how Yip Man took him to another level, and deservedly so. And the first Yip Man movie, I think we have it right here, was really kind of like it took all the conventions that you want from a Hong Kong kung fu movie. You got an individual who is incredibly skilled as an individual martial artist and uses those skills to overcome the most difficult circumstances, which in this case was the Japanese occupation of the south of China, Fa-San. And so, and he has this final duel with a Japanese karate master. It was just a different form of cinematic Wing Chun, because if you go back and look at the movies that Sammo Hung had done at Golden Harvest, like Warriors 2 and Prodigal Son, which we're selling all the memorabilia for on our release site. But those movies, it's a very Shaolin form of Wing Chun. Mm-hmm. And when he goes to do Yip Man, it's become like the Fat San version. It's very close range. And I remember watching the movie, the first one, and thinking, I wonder if worldwide audiences are going to dig this, because it kind of doesn't look like he's doing enough. It weren't that many kicks. I mean, in the movie, it's really the Fan Siu Wong character has all the flashy kicks, and Donnie's kicks are more. Donnie's known as a kicker. Mm-hmm. His techniques are much more grounded and precise. But people did like it. They thought it was amazing. And as I say, it was IP Man, and I was working. I wrote and produced the second Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon film for My Sins, which Donnie starred in, and we did that in New Zealand. And at the beginning of the shoot in New Zealand, we had them do the haka, when they do it, with that dance, right? A ceremonial dance for good luck. It was great. And afterwards, we're all having our lunch in a big aircraft hangar place, and Donnie and I went and sit at one table, and all the big burly Polynesians, the Maori who'd done the haka, came and sat on the other side of the table, like eating and watching us. And it was a little bit disconcerting. And so Donnie and I sat there, and then he's like, "Hey fellas," and then one of them finally plucks up the courage and goes, "Ain't you IP Man?" And I broke the ice. So Donnie was like, "Yes, I am indeed IP Man." So this, by my recollection, I probably should have checked before we started talking, but I think actually they'd done Yip Man 1 and Yip Man 2 by the time they got around, Wong Kar-wai got around to doing Grandmaster. I'll probably have to go back and check what the timing was. But I think it was Yip Man 1, Yip Man 2, and some other Yip Man movies, and then the Grandmaster, because the Grandmaster took forever. But certainly Yip Man 2 was that rare thing. It was a sequel that's kind of pretty different, but pretty much as good as the original. So Yip Man 2 basically follows the plot line the second half of or 2/3 of the film is like the film Rocky 4, which is kind of interesting because is it Rocky 4? Yeah, Rocky 4, because that's also was the springboard for Creed 2, the new film. As we talk about this, we're talking now that it's a new film, but Rocky 4, the plot line is kind of the same. The guy's buddy is killed in the ring, and he swears revenge and trains up and beats the guy at the end. So it was kind of very Rocky-esque. But I remember the original concept for Yip Man 2 was very interesting. It was different to for the opening sequence. What happens is Yip Man is settled in Hong Kong and decides to teach Kung Fu openly, and comes up against this belligerent rival master who's practicing Hong Ga, which is the style that we do here, the style that I do. And he's played by Sammo Hung. And Sammo Hung had actually played a character in the first Yip Man movie, but it was cut out. So then they said, okay, we'll have him come in, and he plays this belligerent Kung Fu master. And initially that they are rivals, and then later they become friends. And Sammo's the guy that gets killed in the ring, and he's the guy that Donnie has to avenge. So it's really cool, particularly if you're a fan of Sammo, as I am. But then originally the idea was that Yip Man is down on his luck, and a friend of his is working as an extra in Hong Kong movies. And so they go to the studio, and at the studio there's a character, or there's a person called Lao Jam, who is a choreographer and also an actor in the Wong Fei Hung film series, the black and white Wong Fei Hung films. And that's the character that Sammo is going to play. And we get a bit heavy into the kung fu stuff here, but Lao Jam is the father of Lao Ga, who is the legendary Shaw Brothers movie director, who Those Chamber of Shaolin, Martial Club, Heroes of the East, 8 Diagram Pole Fighter, another great idol of mine. But so the idea was that they would meet and be, okay, you're from Fat San, oh, you do Hong Ga, you do Wing Chun, and there's like this clash between, and they have a fight at the movie set. And watching from the shadows is the young Bruce Lee, who was an actor, with his father, Lei Hui-chun, and he's like, I want to train with that guy, meaning Yip Man. I thought it was really interesting. And the reason I was told that they abandoned that plot line was concern that the Lau family, the living members of the Lau family, might take issue with the way Lao Jam was depicted in the movie, because they wanted to make him, as I say, belligerent, like the character is in the finished film. So that was the original idea, and then they moved away from that, and they had what you have now, which is Sammo's character is a borderline gangster, but an honourable one. And then you have that wonderful fight on the table between him and Donnie. I actually like that section of the movie more than I do the end sequence, the Rocky-esque storyline. The main villain of the movie is a Western boxer, played by another guy that I discovered, a protege of mine called Darren Shalavi, who sadly passed away very young. And I felt it was a shame. Physically, what an amazing specimen, and what a great challenge he met to fight Donnie Yen and Sammo Hung in the same film. My God, that takes some doing, you know. And I remember him when he was a skinny kid from Manchester who wanted to be in movies, and look at him there. And it was sad because I regret it now. Talking to you, actually, is the first time I've talked about this publicly. But he and I had a parting of the ways for various reasons, and I never really reconciled with him. And in the back of my mind, he reached out a few times, and I was just too stubborn and proud and just didn't want to know. And it was sad because in my back of my mind, I always thought, you know, one day we'll connect and, you know, we'll make amends. And of course, he suddenly, you know, I never thought he would pass away before me. And then he passed, and there's no chance now. I mean, I've certainly tried to, you know, pray for him, but not that. So the moral of the story is, if you have any beef with anybody, fix it now. Tomorrow isn't promised for any of us, so, you know.
Fuck pride only hurts.
That's it, baby.
That's from Pulp Fiction.
Is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. You see, it's funny because I'm the one that looks like Quentin, but you can quote his films better than me. It's outrageous. So, so Yip Man 2 was kind of like, the first section shows you how Yip Man integrates into the Hong Kong in the Hong Kong Kung Fu world, and has those challenges, and has this great clash with the Sammo Hung character. and then it's Rocky 4 through to the end. But it was very successful. I mean, equally successful with the first film, or more successful, and certainly even better regarded internationally, because I think audiences could relate to that story because it's such an American story, you know, like a Rocky-esque kind of story. And then, by my reckoning, after that was when the Grandmaster finally came out, and it was like, I don't know, I was like, when we knew Grandmaster was finally going to get done, I was like, boy, they're going to have a tough time following the way that Donnie had defined the character in the first two films. And I'm not talking now as a kung fu master or as a kung fu actor, which we expect from Donnie Yen, but as an actor, the way indelibly he was in people's minds as Yip Man. Who else is going to dare to play this character? And what you had to do was kind of go against that. Like, there was another movie that was made by Sing Wat Lam, who had produced and caused to be made the first Yip Man film. And Sing Wat Lam did a movie where he had a young Dennis To, a young actor, play the young Yip Man. And then he did another movie where he had Anthony Wong Chao San, play the old Yip Man, which is fine because then you're not competing with Donnie Yen's performance, because Dennis To obviously is like a teenager and Wong Chao San is playing him as a man in his like 60s and 70s. You know, Donnie's obviously eternally frozen at like 45 in his appearance in films, if that, you know, he looked younger. So when Grandmaster came out, the expectation was really high. I mean, and I was blown away. I thought that what made it work is it was so different in style and substance to Yip Man. I mean, I just thought that creatively what Wong Kar-wai brought to the genre was really extraordinary, and it was a real masterpiece. And it's difficult because, I mean, on one level, for me as a martial artist, Yip Man 1 and 2 are more rewarding because they definitely focus, as that original press conference, they focus more on Yip Man the martial artist. There is an amazing performance by Donnie Yen, but there's also these kick-ass martial art fights. In the first film, he fights the famous Yokoyan Dasapgola. He fights all these Japanese karateka, and it's kind of reminiscent of Bruce Lee in Fist of Fury, though Donnie was careful not to copy Bruce Lee, which he'd already done in the TV series Fist of Fury, and did it differently. But it really stuck in people's minds, the martial artistry of that. And then if you watch... Have you seen The Grandmaster?
No, I haven't. I've watched all three of the Yip Man.
Yes.
Yeah, but I haven't watched The Grandmaster.
Which is your favourite of the Yip Men?
I don't remember the first one, but I know the one that makes the most impression was the first one.
Yeah.
But then the one that I remember really, like, the one that I remember better would be the third one with Mike Tyson.
Yes.
Yes.
So interesting. But the Grandmaster is really just kind of like this lyrical tone poem, and the martial art just one of the brushstrokes applied by Wong Kar-wai. But the music is amazing, the look of the film is amazing, and of course the juxtaposition between the North and the South, between the character played by Yip Man, the character played by Tony Leung, who is Yip Man, and Zhang Ziyi's character. And I could probably watch a scene from that movie like every day of my life. And maybe not watch the whole film, but I could watch a scene from The Grandmaster every day for the rest of my life and just feel inspired by it. I think it's just an extraordinary piece of filmmaking. And actually, it's interesting because I just did 36 Chambers of Kung Fu Cinema Volume 1, and then early in the new year, what is our new year now, would be Volume 2, which has Yip Man in it. But I purposely left out The Grandmaster because I'm going to do a whole book devoted to The Grandmaster. Because it's so interesting, and also because there's so much amazing scenes and footage that were not used in the finished film. So, I mean, if push came to shove and you asked me to compare and contrast the Yip Man films and The Grandmaster, I would say that the Yip Man movies are really exemplary examples of kung fu movies, and they're very much within that genre, whereas The Grandmaster is a film sui generis. It's like a film unto itself. It's a piece of, like many of the films of Wong Kar-wai, it is like In the Mood for Love, it is a masterpiece. and masterpieces tend to defy genre. It's like you could say maybe Clint Eastwood had done many westerns, but Unforgiven is at another level perhaps of filmmaking, or maybe Ridley Scott has done other sci-fi films, but Blade Runner is at another level of filmmaking. So that's my own feeling towards the Grandmaster and how it fits with. It's not really a fair comparison, because I think also Wong Kar-wai, of our generation of filmmakers, is rightly perceived to be at a whole different level. So, but the Yip Man films as a commercial entity, I mean, Grandmaster was going to stand unto itself, and I'd love it if they do like Yip Man, if they do Grandmaster Redux at some stage in the future. I don't have any inside track on that, whether they're planning to do that, but normally it takes Wong Kar-wai about 10 years to come back and redo Happy Together and redid In the Mood for Love, and like gave out deleted scenes and all those bells and whistles. So I'm hoping that happens with the Grandmaster. But of course the Yip Man franchise moved forward. 1 and 2 were so popular, they went into Yip Man 3. And I had the good fortune, I read an early draft of a script for Yip Man 3, because every poster for every Yip Man movie, whether it was Yip Man with Donnie Yen or the Grandmaster, has got on it the man that taught Bruce Lee. But they've never really made that movie, where you have Yip Man at the beginning meets his student Bruce Lee and the relationship of them all the way through the movie. The script I read for Yip Man 3 had that story, and it had a great role for a young actor to play Bruce Lee, and of course you'd have had Donnie playing Yip Man, and I thought that draft of the script really carried through the character traits and the plot points of the first 2 films to be resolved in the 3rd movie. But they abandoned that, the production company abandoned that script. And the reason I was given was that there was too much in common with another film. One I mentioned earlier, people doing a young, Singwat Lam did a young Yip Man movie. They felt that there was too much common ground. Oh no, I think it was the old Yip Man movie, the Wong Chao San one. There was too much common ground between these 2 scripts. I don't know. To my mind, they would have been better off with that script. But they went ahead and did Yip Man 3, which was hugely successful. Is in part entertaining, but for me, it's more like a circus show. It's like, oh, here's Bruce Lee at the beginning, played by Danny Chan, the goalie from Shaolin Soccer, played Bruce Lee on a TV series, and he's kicking cigarettes. Oh, and here's Mike Tyson. Oh, and here's a TIE fighter in a lift. And it's just a bunch of segments, and I think it doesn't have that smooth consistency of the first 2 films. And the Mike Tyson story, I had the good fortune of working with Mike Tyson on a later film called Kickboxer Retaliation. And I asked him how I'd met him on the set of Yip Man 3. I went to visit in Shanghai when they were filming. And I mean, by the way, just for your reference, don't go visit movie sets. They're the most boring place to be in the world. Wait to see the finished film. Nobody has time for you. You sit around waiting for them to shoot something. It's terrible. But when I heard Mike Tyson was going to be there, I thought, I'm going to go and visit. Because Donnie was like, oh yeah, for Mike Tyson you bother to come, but for me you stay home. But anyway, so I went to Shanghai and met Mike Tyson. I was there when Donnie, in a fight, broke Mike Tyson's finger.
Oh.
And Tyson was good about it. I broke my finger. It was great. But then the reason he was in Yip Man was, as I was told, that there was this Chinese entrepreneur who was in Hollywood. And there's a period of time, maybe even to this day, when American filmmakers looking to get money out of China for their films. So he was doing the rounds of all the companies. He was at Paramount, and he was in the lobby of some Paramount boss, and Mike Tyson was coming out, and this guy says, hey, Mike Tyson, the most recognizable guy on the planet, and said, would you like to be in a Yip Man movie fighting Donnie Yen? And apart from being a great boxing champion, Mike Tyson loves kung fu movies, and certainly knew who Donnie was and knew what Yip Man was, and it was like, totally. And so this Chinese gentleman got on the phone to Raymond Wong Batming, and said, hey, do you think Donnie would like to fight Mike Tyson? It's a shame in a way it wasn't before Yip Man 2, because that had the boxer, and I guess if Mike Tyson would have played the world boxing champion in Yip Man 2, that would have been more a suitable role. But of course Donnie, when he heard this, was like, fantastic, bring him on. And I've got video of us in London doing a seminar teaching people to do movie fighting, and Donnie's punching the heavy bag, and he goes like, kind of like, well, you can't be like that, it'd be very too short, you can't punch it like Mike Tyson. And then here he is fighting Mike Tyson. So they shoehorned him into the movie, and if you believe that, a guy, an African American guy with the facial tattoos is running a shipping company, I guess it's in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
You know,
in the
at that,
60s,
yeah, in that
70s.
time, then you believe anything. But it was funny because later, of course, now the new Yip Man movie, which I'm not familiar with at all, Yip Man 4, I'm not involved with it at all, but I understand that it's Bruce Lee, Yip Man's student, has moved to America and he's in trouble, and he sends for Yip Man to go and help him. And somebody in the industry said to me, well, you know, like, did Yip Man ever go to America? And I'm like, no, but he didn't fight Mike Tyson either. It's kind of like what happened with Wong Fei-hung, you know, like the Wong Fei-hung movie character, that you start off in the old black and white films and it's pretty true to life, and then you do the modern color films that Choi Hart made, and by number 5 he's fighting a 100-year-old pirate in like Pirates of the Caribbean kind of thing. There's this tendency to take the character beyond. So I'd be curious to see where they've gone with that in Yip Man 4. It'll be very interesting. But there's no question that because of the efforts made originally by Sing Guat Lam and Wong Bat Ming to do a first Yip Man movie with Donnie Yen, and then with Wong Kar-wai and the Grandmaster, Yip Man has become part of our pantheon of characters. And you know, I did a movie called Attrition with the American action actor Steven Seagal, which I kind of produced and worked as a writer on. And he was watching Grandmaster and Yip Man every day, and that's how we got Fan Siu Wong to be his co-star, because Steven liked Fan Siu Wong's performance in the first Yip Man movie, and even the costume and the look that Seagal has in Attrition is very much copied from the Grandmaster. So I think it's become part of the DNA of action filmmaking now, that Yip Man style and that Yip Man character, and that's going to continue. And it'd be very interesting to see where it goes beyond Yip Man 4 and Grandmaster Redux. Actually, I was involved with writing what they call the book, which is the story of Yip Man the musical, but we never did it. A friend of mine, Robert Vincenzo, was putting it all together, and I was hired. I was paid to write it. The music was great. I don't know why we didn't do why it didn't happen. We did a big announcement, press conference in Hong Kong. Different field for me, but I definitely think that a Yip Man musical or a Bruce Lee musical or a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, you know, that kind of combination of like Cirque du Soleil physicality and the music and the drama, you could really do a great musical. Maybe that's the next thing. So, do you have any questions?
Do you think, you know, how far they're gonna take like this Yip Man series, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like the Fast and Furious, or what, like maybe like number 5 they would stop like by like it's like the end of the franchise, like.
Well, I definitely feel it's in the industry. There are films. I mean, they're talking about doing Gladiator 2, so I guess anything's possible.
Yeah,
And even doing Blade Runner 2 seemed like a mistake, but it worked out. I think there's gold in Memdar Hills. As long as they keep making money, they're going to keep doing them. I mean, there are films that don't perform, and they become a cult, and later you get a sequel. Blade Runner is probably a good example of that. But in this case, I mean, Yip Man 1, Yip Man 2, Yip Man 3 had fantastic box office returns. Unfortunately, they were tainted, at least in the public eye, by there was this scandal about, I don't know, something about the distribution company or the companies involved in China. There was some issue about the box office returns, but by any measure, it was a huge success. So was Grandmaster. So one would think they'll keep making them, and they'll stop making them when one flops. So I mean, if Yip Man 4 is very successful, I'm pretty sure they'll do Yip Man 5. I mean, the other thing that you do is that you go, okay, then at a certain point, maybe Donnie doesn't want to do them anymore. It's like, how many more times is Robert Downey Jr. going to play Iron Man? But eventually, aren't you going to have a new young guy play Iron Man? And are you going to have a new guy do Yip Man? And is it like Spider-Man, where you tell the first story again? You know, like they've done that within this last 10 years, and I thought the last Spider-Man was the best one yet. So they keep going.
Spider-Man Homecoming?
Yeah.
Oh, the one with Tom Holland, you mean?
Yeah, the last one, which was the last one that's been the one with the Vulture in it with Michael Keaton. What was that called? Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah, I thought that was great. I thought it was the best one.
Yeah, because that didn't have the origin story.
No, it kind of like just came in, and he was newly formed.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he was an established hero and then the Avengers. All that stuff happens in the movie. But same thing with Yip Man. You can go back and do a young Yip Man, and you can show aspects of his youth, or you just reboot the story and you do Ip Man 1 again with a different actor. So yeah, I mean, as long as people are interested, I think definitely in terms of popular culture, Ip Man now is an icon, like a Sherlock Holmes, like Robin Hood, like, you know, Batman or whatever. People are going to keep reinventing. You're going to have the musical. There's already been a TV series. You're going to have, you know, comic books, whatever media you would have the use of a character of an IP, intellectual property. You're going to have this particular IP man is going to be with us as long as there was an Asian flavor to world entertainment. And the way things are shaping up, I think that's going to be, it's a good long haul. So, how much fun has this been? What should people do if they've enjoyed hearing us talk?
Subscribe to our channel. We have all our links down below, our Real East page on Instagram, on Facebook, and our official Real East website, where you can check out all the products we have to offer.
They include my books, which are, the new one is 36 Chambers of Kung Fu Cinema Volume 1 and Bruce Lee and I. And we have memorabilia from a lot of Hong Kong classic Kung Fu movies. And it's www.realeast.com. And you can also email me at bay@realeast.com, obviously spelled the same way. You know, we need to get you we'll get you. Okay, she's going to get one too. And you're going to be what? So you would be...
Just Liane.
Liane @realeast.com. So if you have nice things to say, write to Liane. And if you want to bitch about something, write to me. Because that's the normal way things work out anyway.
Yes, I am managing possibly all the social media things from now on.
Definitely.
So just check out our pay attention to Instagram, because that's the one I use the most. But yeah, just check out on Instagram, give us a follow, and that would be great.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, you know, I always find it. I mean, it's interesting because I never engage in any of these kind of chat rooms, and there's a lot of really kind of like, I would think, the dialogue seems to be a bit highly strung among some of the Kung Fu fans. But I love when I can have a genuine communication with somebody, who sincerely wants to know something or can tell me stuff, because I'm the kind of person, I always want to learn. So it's like the other day when you told me about the killer being used for what?
In the streetwear company.
Yeah. By the way, if anybody wants killer merchandise, because they bought the T-shirt, right?
They have the T-shirt and the hoodie and the deck. So, you know, if you follow Supreme, you would know that they had a killer hoodie earlier, but we've got like some lobby cards and some flyers if you would like.
How fast? So when Supreme made the killer memorable items, how fast did they sell out?
20 seconds within. Yeah.
I'm in the wrong business. Seriously. Wow. Well, if you want the killer original, if you want the lobby cards they used as their source material, you can get it released.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, comment down below if you think we missed anything or if you like to disagree with anything. But that's it. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.